the same. We love what we hate.
Hey everybody, it's Wood here. Polar bears, chimpanzees, rats, lions, rabbits, tiger salamanders, hamsters, chickens, praying mantis, scorpions, black widows, and even tiger sharks. As the animals go marching two by two. I'm just kidding. No, we're not going to talk about Noah's Ark tonight. I'll give you a moment and let you eat this up on your own and figure out what's coming up. This is Wood. Welcome to Mental Policing. Hey everybody, as I said, this is Wood and welcome to Mental Policing. This is a topic that very rarely gets discussed in the open, but it happens a lot, and we very rarely see it from within ourselves, and it takes someone from the outside looking in to point it out oftentimes. A few episodes ago, I gave a story about my first day on the job in law enforcement, and it was not a pleasant one. Unfortunately, I have many stories similar to that one in my first year. But I don't want to dwell on the past. Instead, I will learn from it and I will move on. I'll share more throughout this podcast, but on this episode, it is because of those stories that I feel like this one is important. Now, I've dragged the intro on just a little bit long to give you an opportunity, and hopefully you have figured out what I'm going to be talking about. What do all of those animals and some of those insects have in common? Well, if you didn't guess it, with the last couple, the praying mantis and the black widow specifically, then I'll tell you. They all eat their own kind. Now, I'm not saying that we are actually cannibals and physically eat our own, but metaphorically, wow, do we eat our own. And why do we do this? Why do we take the first opportunity to take a big old dump on the next guy that walks through the door? Isn't society doing a pretty dang good job of reminding us that we don't matter and that we're expendable? Why do we do this to ourselves? But we just can't help it, can we? We just have to take a shot at the next guy coming through. When I talked last episode about not getting the next promotion or the new car, instead of looking internally, we immediately attack the other person that got those things. We will point out all of their flaws, all of their shortcomings, and the things that they never did and still got that thing that we wanted. Let me give you a few examples. Ever hear of the officer that decides that a certain assignment isn't for them, so they ask for a transfer or step down from doing that particular assignment? No real reason other than it isn't conducive to their lifestyle or the schedule doesn't work right. It could be any number of harmless things. Is them simply stepping down and moving on usually how it goes? Or do we assume they couldn't hack it? They had to get out because they weren't smart enough, right? Or it was just too hard. Or they were even kicked out of the assignment because they couldn't do it. We start rumors about them because somehow, in some way, they just aren't good enough. So now they get a reputation for being lazy or terrible or not able to cut it in the job. It might take them years to kick this stigma. And all for what? Because we don't know, so we just assume a story? There's nothing wrong with asking, getting an answer, and even being okay with that answer. What is wrong with allowing an officer the opportunity to be good at what he does? And if the first one wasn't right, maybe the next one is. Instead, we eat him up. Next, so an officer gets hurt while at work, maybe even shot, and lives. There are a lot of scary and unfortunate things that happen in this career that we may have no control over. If an officer gets shot, he will know the circumstances behind how that happened. Why second guess his explanation? There will be plenty going on in his own head. And should he have to take action in this incident, and he take a life of his own, sorry, not take his own life, but take another's life, he will also have some mental health needs. The last thing an officer that survives something like this is for his own people suggesting that he did something wrong. That maybe he even shot himself. Or that he coulda, shoulda, woulda. We eat him up. Lastly, how many times do you hear about an officer that didn't take an action, even if his inaction was the correct action, and that was the right result? We jump on them and begin to question why they didn't use their firearm, why they didn't tase somebody, why they didn't get out of the vehicle. Life is real easy and convenient from behind your own little desk, isn't it? We weren't there. We don't know what the officer saw or didn't see. We don't know what they felt, and we don't know their circumstances that may have led them to do what they did. I often hear the police community ask the general public to offer us a moment to have the whole story come out before making a judgment. Yet, in-house, before we even get a good night's rest, we have either condemned or exonerated someone. We decided in a moment if we can trust that officer without knowing anything about what just happened. And while we rally around those that are persecuted publicly without merit, we destroy that same person in-house to the point where they will leave the department or become isolated. This is not healthy. It's not healthy for that officer being eaten alive, and it's not healthy for the officers doing it. If you're always belittling and finding fault on every action to every officer, their decisions, and every move that they make, eventually it will harvest a negative condition within you. Stop it. Stop allowing yourself to fall victim to this type of behavior and support each other. You don't know the details. You may not know the person personally, but if you took the time to ask, talk, and above all, listen to them, you may just learn something. I hate to make this episode sound negative, because that's not my intention. But if you're silently arguing with me about this not happening, you might need to look around a little bit. This happens way more often than it should, and it can kill morale, and it can hurt the police community more than you know. We as a law enforcement community are awesome when another officer from another agency needs help, or one of our direct friends is affected. We will go above and beyond to help them. The law enforcement community has some of the fiercest, most loyal people I have ever met in my life. Unfortunately, it gets lost on us too. If I don't know you, it's easier to assume than to ask and listen. If this isn't an issue where you work, then you're lucky. Those are men and women that understand this job. They also understand that we are human and that we can make mistakes. If you have victim shamed or belittled anyone, admit you were wrong. Admit that you misjudged and make it right. It will go a lot further to making a healthier environment to admit wrongs and move forward than to dig in and pretend it is not your fault. Supervisors, you are not immune from this either. As a supervisor, rank and file look up to you to make the right decision. They look to you to lead. Don't get caught up in it, though. Do not set out to tear up your squad because they need to have thicker skin or should know better. Too often, it is like someone with rank will never admit they were wrong. They never suggest that they actually don't have an answer and just act like everything is fine. The more you show that you are human, the more your squad will appreciate that you are human. If you are the first one to stand up for an officer whose circumstances may have been misunderstood, then they will likely follow suit. You do have the ability to sway a group. Do not forget that. Now, as I wrap this up, I do not want everyone to think it is all bad. There are thousands of police officers in the United States. They're doing the very best they can with what they've got. But we always have a choice. We have a choice to do what is right, and we have the choice to not eat our own. If you wouldn't want to be consumed and spit back out, then why would you do that to another? Don't let the inside tear us apart more than the outside. Remember, your yesterday is someone's today. Now, I'm Wood. This is Mental Policing, and I will see you on the next one.
Same, we love what we hate. We lie, but we know we can't water what doesn't grow. Give up, let it go. Well, we fell apart just in time. You say at least it was worth the try. Like we feel the same.
Polar bear is blind. Nothing wrong with that. I'm scared, unfortunately.